Out on the vast open ocean, far beyond the reach of any law, there's a shadow world. It's a world that carries something like 90% of all global trade, but it operates under a system of rules that's, well, it's deliberately confusing. It's built to be opaque, and it allows crime to thrive without any real consequences. Now, this isn't about pirates in the old-fashioned sense. This is about a very sophisticated financial and legal system that creates a massive phantom fleet, hiding its owners in plain sight. Let's just start with one staggering number. According to the United Nations, nearly 75%, three-quarters of the world's entire merchant fleet sails under what's known as a flag of convenience. So just picture that. 3 out of every 4 massive vessels out there, the tankers, the container ships, the fishing trawlers, are all flying the flag of a country that likely has nothing to do with who actually owns it. And that right there raises the central question we're going to tackle. If the flag on the ship doesn't tell you who's in charge, then who is? Who is really profiting from these vessels? And more importantly, what does all this secrecy allow them to do out there, in the shadows of our oceans? Now, you have to understand, we're not talking about a handful of rogue ships here and there. This is a global, legally sanctioned system. It's an infrastructure that has been designed specifically to create these phantom ships, vessels where finding the true owner is next to impossible. At the very core of this whole thing is the Flag of Convenience, or FOC. You see, international law says every single ship has to be registered to a country. That's its flag state. Well, a flag of convenience is simply when a ship owner, let's say they're in Germany, decides to register their vessel in a country like, say, Panama. They have no real connection to Panama other than paying a registration fee. So why on earth would they do this? Well, the incentives are just overwhelming. It all comes down to cutting costs and avoiding rules. We're talking about paying lower or even zero corporate taxes. We're talking about the freedom to hire labor from anywhere in the world at the absolute lowest possible wages, completely sidestepping stricter safety and pay laws back home. And the big one, they get to operate with almost no government oversight, all while wrapped in a thick blanket of anonymity. It is a race to the bottom, and it is incredibly lucrative. To really get your head around how big a deal the FOC system is, it helps to just compare it side by side with traditional ship registration. And believe me, the difference is stark. Okay, so what you're seeing here are basically 2 parallel universes for shipping. On one side, under a traditional flag like the US, there are strict rules. Ownership is restricted, you pay your corporate taxes, and you follow national labor laws. The country has what's called a genuine link to that ship. But then you look at the flag of convenience column. It's a free-for-all. Ownership is open to anyone from anywhere. Taxes, forget about them. Labor rules are bare bones. And oversight? It's often non-existent because a lot of these smaller countries just don't have the resources or the political will to enforce the law. That genuine link is reduced to little more than a credit card transaction. So here's the bottom line. What we have created is a global marketplace where tiny, often cash-strapped nations literally sell a piece of their national sovereignty. They sell the right to fly their flag for a fee. It gets them some revenue, sure, but it gives ship owners a get-out-of-jail-free card from regulation and from responsibility. But flying a flag of convenience is really just the final step in the process. To truly become a ghost on the seas, an owner first has to build this complex machine of corporate anonymity. It's a whole process designed to make the true beneficial owner, the person who actually gets the profits and makes the decisions, a complete and total mystery. And look, this isn't some conspiracy theory. The Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, the OECD, they investigated this directly, and their conclusion? They found that creating these corporate shields is, and I'm quoting here, very easy and comparatively cheap. Let's break down exactly how it's done. Think of it as building the ultimate getaway car for a corporate crime. Step 1. You create a shell company, what's called an International Business Corporation, or IBC, in a country that's known for secrecy. This company, it only exists on paper. Step 2. You appoint nominees. These are basically lawyers or agents who act as the directors and shareholders, but only in name. Their job is to hide your identity. Step 3, and this is the really clever part, you use something called bearer shares. These are just physical pieces of paper. Whoever is physically holding that certificate owns the company. There's no register, no digital trail, nothing. And finally, step 4, this completely anonymous corporation that you've created goes out, buys a ship, and registers it under a flag of convenience. Poof. The owner is now a ghost. Now, here's the part that really gets me. The most shocking part of this whole thing is that the entire structure we've just laid out is, for the most part, perfectly legal. It exists because of a chain of historical events and one critical, massive loophole in international law. This system didn't just appear overnight. It started building over 100 years ago. Back in 1905, a court case basically ruled that any sovereign state could grant its flag to anyone it wanted. The modern FOC system really took off in the 1920s when U.S. ships reflagged to Panama just so they could serve alcohol during Prohibition. Later, the UN tried to put a stop to this. They created conventions that required a genuine link between a ship and its flag state. But here's the problem. They never actually defined what genuine link meant. So today, it's been interpreted so loosely that just paying a registration fee is considered a genuine link. And that created the enormous loophole that the entire system drives right through. Here it is, Article 91 of the UN Convention on the Law of the Sea. This is the sentence that was supposed to ensure accountability. It was meant to tie a ship to a country that would actually take responsibility for it. Instead, because of that vague wording, it's been twisted to the point that it sanctions the very system it is designed to prevent. It's become almost meaningless. So, we've seen how this system works. Now we have to confront why it matters. This whole system of anonymity, it's not just a clever way to save money on taxes. It is a direct enabler of a huge range of criminal activity and human suffering on the high seas.
I mean, it makes sense, right? If you can't identify an owner, you can't hold them accountable for anything. And that impunity allows for this whole cascade of awful things. It allows massive illegal fishing fleets to wipe out fish stocks because a boat can just switch flags and erase its history of violations. It makes sanctions evasion possible. Think of Russia's shadow fleet moving oil around the world. The true ownership is buried so deep it's untouchable. This system fuels smuggling, deliberate pollution, and just horrific human rights abuses against the crews who are trapped on these ships with no one to turn to for help.
The worst offenders, they all use the same playbook. They use AIS blackouts. That's when they illegally turn off their satellite trackers to go dark, usually to do illegal ship-to-ship transfers of fish or oil. They practice flag hopping. The moment they get into trouble, they just switch to a new flag of convenience, and like that, the record is wiped clean. And a recent EU study pointed to something called end-of-life reflagging, where a ship with a long history of violations will switch to a notoriously lax flag right before it's scrapped, just to erase all accountability forever. And the data proves this isn't just a theory. Look at this chart. It's based on EU port inspections, and it shows the rate of safety and labor violations found on ships. You see ships with national flags have a pretty low rate. The FOC flags, a significantly higher rate. And then you get to the extreme cases, like Cameroon, where a staggering 80% of inspections found serious problems. That shows you the real-world impact on safety. The experts who track this stuff every single day, they don't mince words. As Steve Trent, the CEO of the Environmental Justice Foundation, says, this system is not some accidental loophole. It is an open invitation for bad actors to exploit the ocean and its people with very little fear of getting caught. And let's never forget the human cost in all of this. It's the seafarers, often from poor countries, who are the primary victims. They face just horrendous conditions. They are routinely cheated out of their wages, and in the absolute worst cases, they are simply abandoned in foreign ports by owners who just disappear behind their corporate shields, leaving the crew and the ship behind to rot. The call for change is definitely getting louder. Vanya Volper-Horst from the conservation group Oceana, she really sums up how a lot of people feel. When you look at all the evidence, the conclusion is pretty simple. This era of hidden owners and these irresponsible flags, as she calls them, it just has to end. The proof is there. The only question now is whether there's the political will to actually do something about it. Which really leaves us with one final big question. We all benefit from global shipping, right? The clothes we're wearing, the food we eat, the gas in our cars. But in building this incredibly efficient system, we've also accepted a certain amount of lawlessness. So we have to ask ourselves, what is the true price we're willing to pay for the convenience of anonymity out on the outlaw ocean?
So while markets rise and fall, systems like this quietly move billions behind the scenes, hidden from the public, hidden from scrutiny, and sometimes hidden from the law itself. Because in global finance, the most powerful forces are rarely the most visible. And this is just one of the systems used by the unseen elite.